Chief Tyson, actually I want to ask you about something. Jason said, ask about something? Tyson was stunned, and then said, please tell me, little brother. From the beginning, it was then seen that Jason and Renault did not seem to be from the territory of chaos, and the relationship between the two seemed to be that of master and servant, but it also gave people an awkward feeling. As the three major figures in Santa Fe City, as one of the families, with such a master appearing in the city, he naturally had to pay close attention to his purpose, but when he heard that Jason was inquiring about something, he felt relieved. Jason smiled and said, I don't know, Chief Tyson, do you know where the cloud mist spirit fruit can be found in the territory of chaos? After that, Jason stared into Tyson's eyes. Cloud mist spirit fruit? Tyson was startled, then shook his head and said, in the following decades in Santa Fe City, I have never heard of anyone getting the most precious cloud spirit fruit in the cloud swamp, but since you two need it, I will help the two of you inquire about this cloud mist spirit fruit in this chaotic territory. As the patriarch of one of the three major families in Santa Fe City, the territory of chaos, Tyson naturally knew the function of the cloud spirit fruit. When he glanced at Renault, there was a hint of surprise in his eyes. Jason nodded. As the originator of the technological spirit medicine, he was naturally observant. He could tell from the look in Tyson's eyes that everything Tyson said was true. Huh? At this moment, Tyson seemed to have thought of something, but I thought there might be someone in Santa Fe City who might have heard of this cloud spirit fruit. Who is it? Jason's eyes suddenly condensed, and Renault, who had been silent on the side, suddenly burst into light, and a dignified atmosphere suddenly appeared in the air. Tyson's heart trembled, and he squeezed out a smile on his face and said, don't be nervous, you two. That person is a guest of my family. I will ask Nades to take you two there. After that, Tyson said to the side. Naders shouted loudly, immediately take the two gentlemen to the city to find Master Gandalf. Yes, father. Naders agreed and led Jason and the two out of the living room. Go and ask Belgium to go to the Great Elder's courtyard immediately. Shortly after Jason and Renault left the living room, Tyson solemnly ordered the maid beside him, then turned around and left the living room, heading towards the depths of the family mansion. Walk everywhere. In the courtyard deep in the Comsey family mansion. An old man wearing a red luxurious robe with black and white mottled hair had a solemn face and listened carefully to Belgium's story, while the patriarch Tyson stood quietly aside. Very powerful, Great Elder. Before the violent demonic bear waved his palm, I clearly remember that the one-armed man was standing next to the young man. But when the violent demonic bear waved his palm, even I couldn't when I was dodging. The one-armed man's sword light had already killed the violent demon bear before his giant palm hit me. What's even more frightening is that when the one-armed man swung his sword, he just shot casually based on his expression. But the golden sword light can easily penetrate the hard head of the violent demon bear. Belgium's eyes were a little absent-minded, as if he was recalling the moment yesterday. Yes, Great Elder, Nades and Belgium said that same thing. What do you think of this one-armed man's strength? Tyson asked with a questioning look on his face. You can instantly kill a 5th-level violent demon bear with a random sword. It only takes 3 swords to kill 3 violent demon bears. The Great Elder Deus with black and white mottled hair frowned and calmed down completely after a moment. This is a master, a super master, at least a 6th-level low-level spiritual master. As the most powerful man in the Comsey family and the only 6th-level low-level spiritual master in the family, Deus's face was filled with emotion. Dignified. 6th-level low-level spiritual master? Isn't that the same as the Great Elder? Tyson and Belgium were shocked. In their hearts, although they thought the one-armed man was powerful, the gold spiritual master was the most powerful among all spiritual masters. The most powerful attacker in the division, the two of them also doubted whether the one-armed man was a 5th-level senior spiritual master. This is just my guess, but according to Belgium's description, it is very likely that the person is a 6th-level low-level spiritual master. Do you know their purpose of coming to Santa Fe City? Then Jiajin asked me about the Yunwu spirit. Judging from their expressions, they don't seem to be lying about the news. I've asked Nades to take them to Master Gandalf to inquire about it. Tyson's eyes shone. Great Elder, that one-armed man is so powerful. Can we win him over to deal with the Dax family together? The Dax family seems to be moving around a lot these days. No dash. Diaz frowned and whispered, it's better to be cautious. The identities of these two people are currently unknown. What's more, Christo of the Dax family entered the City of Chaos, which gave the Dax family the support of the Per family of the three major families of the Chaos territory. We should not act rashly. On the streets of Santa Fe City. Brother Jess, this Gandalf is a guest of our Khan's family. He has been researching elixirs in the family market and is the most powerful elixir in our city of Santa Fe. Nades told Jason with great enthusiasm. Oh, the most powerful elixir? Yes, Brother Jace, that Master Gandalf is a 5th-level low-level elixir master. If it weren't for my father Tyson accidentally saving him once when he was in trouble, I'm afraid we would be the only one in Santa Fe City. Chinese, the net can't keep people at all. With Master Gandalf's strength, he still has a place even in Chaos Kateo. Speaking of Gandalf, Nader's face showed a huge amount of pride. Along the way, Jason also understood that the reason why the Kang's family can become one of the three major families in Santa Fe City is that in addition to having a great elder in the family who is a 6th-level low-level spiritual master, they are also closely related to Gandalf. With the relationship, the Khan's family, with the support of Gandalf, has almost monopolized the entire elixir market in Santa Fe City, so it is naturally powerful. Brother Jesse, up ahead is the market of our Kang's family. After passing through several bustling streets, a row of quite luxurious buildings appeared in front of Jason, all of which were carved with Kang's. See family coat of arms. As soon as the three of them entered, a tall waiter with plump breasts and beautiful appearance came over. After seeing Nades, the waiter immediately showed a smile on his face and gave him a sweet smile. She glanced at Nades secretly and said with a sweet smile, Master Nades, you haven't seen Lily and Fengshi for a long time. Hey, which family does this little brother come from? Lily? Why is Lee so jealous? Feng Zan, there are no rules. Nades yelled angrily, and the waitress turned pale with fright. She looked up hurriedly. In the past, she would joke with her a few words. This time, Nade's face was extremely serious, and he snorted angrily, Lily, where is Master Gandalf? Lily secretly glanced at Jason and Renaud who were standing aside, and said hurriedly, Master, he is in the laboratory. Nade snorted, smiled at Jason and Renaud, and said, Brother Jess, please come with me. Then he took Jason and Renaud with him. Go inside to the left. The three of them seemed to be walking side by side, but Nades was slightly ahead of him, but his body was slightly tilted in the direction of Jason. He looked like a servant leading the way for Jason. Of all the servants of the Kang's family along the way saw this scene and rubbed their eyes, almost unable to believe what they saw. Among the Kangxi family, those who can inherit the position of patriarch are the eldest young master and Nades, the second young master. Although the second young master is not the best candidate for the family due to his too straightforward temperament, he is deeply loved by the patriarch and the others, has a very high status in the family, so everyone is in disbelief when they see him with such a submissive attitude. With Naders leading the way, although the entire city was heavily guarded, the journey was smooth. The three of them soon arrived at the door of an experimental room. Naders pushed open the door of the laboratory and said to the inside, Master Gandalf, there are two gentlemen who want to ask the master something. In the laboratory, a strong smell of medicine filled the air. In front of a large experimental table, an old man with a gray beard was holding a medicine spoon in his right hand, pouring some auburn powder into a bottle of bubbling dark green medicine. There was an explosion, and a thick black smoke rose from the potion bottle, immediately darkening the old man's face. Get out, who asked you to come in, get out. The old man was furious and cursed angrily at Jason and the others. Naders obviously did not expect this, and hurriedly said, "Master Gandalf, get out, get out, get out, I told you to get out, didn't you hear me? I'm so angry, why do you keep making mistakes in this most critical part?" The old man vented all his anger on Nades, Jason and others, and his temper was extremely violent. This Naders glanced at Jason and Renaud beside him, with a wry smile on his face. He didn't expect that Master Gandalf was preparing it, and it failed, and it ended up like this. If he were an ordinary person in the family, he would naturally betray his reputation as the second young master of the king's family. However, Master Gandalf is a person with a very special status in the entire family. Even the Great Elder behaves extremely well in front of him. Polite. Facing Gandalf's request to get out, Naders was unable to disobey, which made him feel extremely embarrassed when he brought Jason and the others over to inquire. Just when Naders didn't know what to do, Jason ignored Gandalf's scolding and came to the experimental table in front of Gandalf. He looked at Gandalf coldly, and Renaud also followed closely. "Brother Jess, do they want cheese?" Nade's heart suddenly jumped. "Let you go away, are you deaf or something?" Gandalf looked at Jason and Renaud angrily and roared. "Brother Jess." Nades hurriedly walked up, fearing that both sides would suddenly fight. "Humph, when you put the red snake and scorpion powder into the last part of the beast transformation potion, both the timing and the amount were wrong, and you still dared to make a big fuss and blame others for the failure of the preparation. You are like this, does a spiritual pharmacist deserve to be called a master? How ridiculous." Jason's sneer suddenly sounded throughout the laboratory and echoed for a long time. "I may have encountered a bottleneck. I have been thinking about the next plot of the day today. The subscription is also decreasing. I have a headache. I am already writing the next chapter, but it may be about time. Brothers and sisters who really can't wait can read it tomorrow. Tangled, tangled." "What?" Nades was stunned. He did not expect that Jason would suddenly say such a sentence when he came in front of Master Gandalf. You must know that Gandalf in front of him is the most powerful elixir in the entire Santa Fe city. Brother Jace actually said this. Ching is not worthy of being called a master of elixirs. Naders was a little speechless. If Master Gandalf is not worthy of being called a master of elixirs, then there is no master of elixirs in the entire city of Santa Fe. Not only is there no elixir master in Santa Fe City, even in some large cities in the territory of chaos, there may not be an elixir master of a higher level than Gandalf. Master Gandalf in front of him was also stunned, looking at Jason with an expression as if he had seen a ghost. He did not expect that the boy in front of him would be so old-fashioned and accused him, a low-level elixir master of Wujiang. Does the wife know who he is talking to? Gandalf's eyes were extremely wide. Hee hee. A sudden convulsive smile appeared on his face, and then a deafening roar echoed throughout the laboratory. Who do you think you are? You dare to accuse me when you don't know anything about it? Beast transformation potion, 7 red snake and scorpion powder? Gandalf's face was filled with a sneer. Do you think you are great? Nades hurriedly rushed, he went up and looked at Jason vigorously. At this moment, Shanshan was crying in his heart. He secretly looked at the cold-faced Renaud aside with fear, for fear that Renaud would suddenly make a move. And where did this guy come from? The guy with a half bucket of water. Gandalf continued to curse, and then waved his hands impatiently and said, Forget it, get out of here, I will have to argue with you. Just as Gandalf was speaking, Jason had already arrived at the experimental table. His eyes flicked across the materials on the experimental table, his face darkened, and his eyes were as calm as water. An almost indistinguishable phantom flashed in front of everyone at such a speed that in an instant, a pile of materials appeared in front of Jason the next moment. After seeing a few materials on the table, Gandalf, who was cursing at first, suddenly stopped and was a little stunned. The materials Jason selected were exactly the materials he had previously prepared for the beast transformation potion. Not bad. Dolph initially thought that what Jason said earlier was just something he had picked up casually, but after a quick look, the young man in front of him seemed to really know the formula for the beast transformation potion, which made Gandalf a little surprised. You must know that the beast transformation potion is a 5th level low-grade elixir, and it is not something that a young man can know casually. In Gandalf's days, Jason's hands began to beat happily, and his 3rd level advanced spiritual consciousness radiated out quickly, and he carefully sensed any composition of the materials in front of him. Each material is processed quickly and then added to the preparation bottle to undergo reactions again and again. The whole movement of Zaimori was so fast that it was dazzling and overwhelming. His jumping fingers and serious eyes gave people an extremely amazing feeling. Gandalf looked at Jason's preparation in front of him for an instant, and murmured with disbelief in his eyes. Naders couldn't tell what the situation was now, he just subconsciously said. He said he only had a brief idea of it. Know a thing or two. Gandalf was almost speechless. Although some of the preparation processes of the young man in front of him were a bit strange and seemed to be somewhat different from those prepared by normal elixir masters, so far, every step of the reaction of the potion was as good as there is no difference in the correct preparation. It can be called a textbook classic preparation. Just when Gandalf was extremely shocked, the preparation of the entire beast transformation potion had entered the last step, and the dark green solution reacted in the potion bottle, and gradually began to stir up tiny bubbles. "Old guy, look at," Jason said indifferently, and when he turned his right hand, a medicine spoon appeared in his originally empty right hand. When the spoon part of the medicine spoon came to the medicine bottle containing the red snake and scorpion powder, Kaiken shook it. About 1/3 of the auburn powder appeared in the medicine spoon, without using any instrument to weigh it at all. Jason waited for a moment, and a large number of tiny bubbles suddenly bubbled up in the potion bottle that was slowly rising. Jason's light condensed, and the red snake powder from the medicine spoon fell into the reacting potion bottle in an instant. A violent fluctuation of spiritual power produced in the laboratory. The originally dark green turbid solution with bubbles of soap bubbles reacted sharply after adding auburn powder. A moment later, a bottle of how green, Chinese website pure elixir, like a transparent emerald appeared in front of everyone, flowing with a green light full of deep mystery. Gandalf's mouth opened wide, his eyes widened, and his eyes revealed a strong sense of disbelief. It's impossible," he murmured in his mouth, and his mind was dull. He immediately rushed to the experimental table, grabbed the light green elixir, and picked it up while sensing it with his spiritual sense. I took a test needle on the laboratory table, dipped it in the elixir, and put it on the tip of my tongue. Whether it was the information coming from my spiritual consciousness or the feeling of mailing on my tongue. After several months of work, I still haven't fully mastered the beast transformation potion. What surprised him even more was that the sexual fusion degree of this bottle of beast-changing potion was still 90%, almost reaching the perfect state. However, its preparer was a young man who looked to be less than 20. It's unbelievable. In fact, if Jason hadn't used a special method to speed up the reaction process in order to make the beast-changing potion in a very short period of time, he could have easily transformed the beast-turning potion's properties into 8Z. The degree of fusion reaches the ultimate perfection. Humph. Jason sneered twice, turned around and walked out of the laboratory. Ahem, this little brother, this master, please stay. Gandalf suddenly rushed forward and stopped Jason, who was walking out, with an extremely moving smile on his face. It would be fine if a beautiful woman showed such a smile, but on such an old man with gray hair and beard, full of wrinkles, and looking a bit slovenly because he has been in the laboratory all year round, it is so creepy. Cough. This master, I am Gandalf, the 5th level low-level elixir master. Ahem, Gandalf smiled coquettishly and said shamelessly, I wonder how the master successfully prepared the beast transformation potion before. Can you tell me about it? Ahem, I know, this request is a bit presumptuous, but well, this Natters on the side looked blankly at Gandalf, who was speaking incoherently in front of Jason, feeling extremely speechless. This was the first time for him. Seeing Master Gandalf showing such an expression. What made Natters even more depressed was that compared to when he first came in, Master Gandalf's face changed so quickly that it was simply breathtaking, and Jonda was shocked. The image of Erdalf in Natters' mind that was originally extremely tall suddenly collapsed. Is this a famous elixir master? He was clearly a child asking for sweets from an adult. Nades, who originally respected Jason just because Jason saved his life and because of Renault's power, now looked at Jason with even more expressions in his eyes. Admiration and awe from the heart. Jason is the first person in Santa Fe City to be able to make Master Gandalf like this. In Gandalf's expectant eyes, Jason said indifferently, "It's necessary to prepare a unit of Beastmaster potion. The content of red snake and scorpion powder is 5.3 grams. It must be added when a large number of bubbles with a volume of 1 millimeter are released from the medicine bottle. At this time, the reaction of the elixir has just intensified, and the added red snake and scorpion powder can be completely added to the reaction, but there will be no leftover. If you observe it with your spiritual sense, you will find that the reaction of the potion's spirit element will increase exponentially. At this time, not only did you add too much, but you also added it too late. This is how gold comes, so that's how it is." Gandalf's eyes suddenly flashed with a light like a hungry wolf seeing a sheep, and he murmured, and then he rushed to the experimental table, prepared it again, and completely completed the experiment. The remaining people in the room were nothing more than air. Nades opened his mouth, wanting to say something, but finally closed his mouth. Jason, however, seemed to have known the result for a long time, watching it in Gandalf's laboratory. From the moment he came in, he could see that Gandalf was actually a research madman like Bispham and Saha. In fact, a large part of the elixir masters on the entire continent were of the same virtue. They were a group of research madmen, desperate for the elixir, often have no image in front of elixir masters who are more powerful than themselves, just to understand that small reaction step, or a question in the preparation of the elixir. The reaction progressed step by step, and Gandalf was extremely fascinated. When he reached the last step, he carefully weighed a certain amount of red snake and scorpion powder with an instrument, and then stared at the dark green potion reacting in front of him with his eyes. When a large number of bubbles appeared, he poured the red snake and scorpion powder into the Chinese website, and then one by one, "Haha, I succeeded, I succeeded." Looking at the light green elixir on the experimental table in front of him, Gandalf's whole body, the man suddenly stood up, with ecstasy on his face, grinning and laughing. Ugh! He caught a glimpse of Jason and others from the corner of his eye, and Gandalf remembered the previous things from his ecstasy, and hurriedly came to Jason, said in front of him, "This master has not yet asked your name, Gandalf. I will never forget your kindness in giving me advice. I wonder if you have anything to do with me?" This time, Gandalf asked Jason. He was extremely sincere and polite in front of others. Jason smiled and said, "Cloud spirit fruit?" Gandalf frowned slightly, and a light flashed in his eyes. "There's something going on." Seeing Gandalf's expression, Jason's heart skipped a beat. 8 years ago, about Gandalf said slowly. At this moment, there was a sudden noise outside the door, and countless footsteps and shouts suddenly sounded in the backyard outside the laboratory. "What's going on?" Gandalf frowned and stopped talking. Being interrupted, Jason also showed a trace of displeasure on his face and looked at Nader. Nades blushed with a hint of embarrassment, and then his eyes showed a hint of anger, and he quickly walked towards the door of the laboratory. This is Master Gandalf's laboratory in the city of Comsey Family Square. Generally, people who do not have a very high status in the family are not qualified to enter. Therefore, this backyard is usually quite peaceful, but today's situation this made Nades extremely angry. "Nadjin, get out of the way. But before he could reach the door of the laboratory, Renaud, who had been silent for a long time, frowned and suddenly spoke. Nades was stunned, but Renaud's words made him dare not resist at all, and he hurriedly stepped aside. Bang! When Naders was full of doubts, a huge roar suddenly sounded throughout the entire experiment, and then the door of the entire laboratory was instantly shattered into countless fragments and scattered in all directions. Haha, Master Gandalf, you made it easy for me to find you. At the door, sawdust gradually dispersed, and a burly man holding a giant axe in his hand, with a joking smile on his face, laughed out loud, and slowly appeared in everyone's sight. And behind him, there was a group of strong men with fierce looks and murderous intent. Israel, is you? Nades's face suddenly changed, and he shouted angrily, "This is the territory of my Concher family, you come here. What to do?" In the city of Santa Fe, there are three major families in control, namely, the Dax family, the Cons family, and the Neal family. The Dax family is the most powerful and controls most of the industries in the entire city, while Israel he is a direct member of the Dax family, and his strength has reached the terrifying level of a 5th-level senior sect spiritual master. Like Nader Jin's father, Patriarch Tyson, he is the most promising person in the entire Santa Fe city to be promoted to the new 6th level. One of the candidates for the low-level spiritual master. Hey, isn't this the second young master, Nades? Israel narrowed his eyes and seemed a little surprised. The Concher family's territory? It is no longer the case, and soon your Cons family will become history in Santa Fe City. What do you mean? Nades showed a look of surprise on his face. Israel's words made him feel something bad in his heart. He shouted loudly, "Cleo, stop screaming, my dear Nades too. Young master, the guards of your Kongsi family in Fong City are now waiting for you to meet them on the Huangquan Road. Don't worry, not only the guards in Fong City, but also your father, Patriarch Tyson, and your family's Dia elder, Si De, will also meet you soon. I believe you will not be lonely on the road to hell, ha ha. Israel laughed wildly, and then his eyes fell on Master Gandalf in the crowd, and said with a smile, "Master Gandalf, starting from today, Santa Fe City will be under the full control of our Dax family. In the past 3 years, the big family will become history. From today on, the Kongsi family and the Neal family will cease to exist. Chief Margar, please come down here to respectfully invite Master Gandalf to sit in our Dax family. Master Gandalf, you can rest assured, we Dax, the C family, will never treat you badly, Master." "No, it's impossible, Israel. If you dare, the Great Elder and the others will definitely unite with the Neal family. The conspiracy of your Dax family will never succeed." Nades trembled in his mouth. No one knew whether it was because of anger or fear. Impossible? Israel showed a trace of disdain on his face and sneered, "I forgot to tell you, the Malga clan leader has successfully advanced to the 6th level of intermediate spiritual master a few days ago. It is really difficult to destroy your two families. It's too easy, and Master Christo has already joined the Per family. With the support of the Per family, one of the 3 major families in the territory of chaos, controlling Santa Fe City is not an easy task." Every time Israel said a word, Nader's face turned pale. By the time Israel finished all the words, Nader's face was already pale and there was no trace of blood, and he muttered that it was impossible. And Gandalf's face became extremely solemn at this moment. His spiritual master equivalent is only a 5th-level low-level sect spiritual master, and he is no match for Israel. "Israel, you can let me go with you, but you must promise me to let Nades and the 2 people around me go." Gandalf said angrily. "Let Najin go? That's impossible. As for the 2 people around you," Israel's eyes fell on Jason and Renaud, and he smiled and said, "These 2 seem to be very familiar with each other. It's not impossible to let them go, as long as they don't resist. After I return to the family and find out their identities, as long as they are not enemies of my Dax family, our Daxgene family will naturally not make things difficult for them." Israel, you Gandalf, there was a trace of anger on his face, but he knew what kind of thing this Dax family was. If they really didn't resist and were taken in, would the two people around him still have a way to survive? Yes. I'll stop Israel, and you too can escape from here through the back door of the laboratory, Gandalf whispered in Jason's ear. For Jason, who had let himself figure out the preparation method of the beast transformation potion, Gandalf was extremely admired in his heart, and even regarded Jason as his benefactor. Naturally, he couldn't let anything happen to the two of them here. In the world of elixirs, there is no age group, only those who have mastered it are teachers. A gentle hand, he put his hand on Gandalf's shoulder and stopped him from speaking. It was Jason next to him. Get out of here, otherwise, you will die. Jason said indifferently, and finally seemed to be able to find something in Gandalf. Information. Jason didn't want to be interrupted before he got the clue. If it were in the Northwest countries, Jason would not be so arrogant at all, but this is the territory of chaos, dripping from the hands of more than a dozen big men at the door. It can be known from the sharp blade of blood and the other party's previous words that the guards of the Kang's family in Fong City are probably all dead now. No one can reason with you here. As long as you are strong, you can kill people at will. Of course, you may also be killed by a stronger person at the next moment. This is the territory of chaos. Jason's not loud voice sounded faintly throughout the entire laboratory, but it shocked everyone present, and the entire laboratory fell into silence. Then one by one, ha ha, roaring laughter erupted in the entire laboratory. The dozen or so big men at the door leaned forward and backward with laughter, especially Israel, who stood at the front. Unable to bear it, he pointed his finger at Jason and almost burst into tears laughing. And NB baby, haha, little brother, have you been weaned? It's so funny, I'm going to laugh to death, haha, ha ha ha. Master Gandalf also had a look of astonishment on his face, and looked at Jason with some anger. Not far away, Nade's eyes were filled with laughter. A ray of light emerged, looking hopefully at the one-armed Renault. Master Gandalf, did you hear this? I was well-intentioned and prepared to let them go, but if you see that they don't understand each other, you can't blame the brothers. Israel stopped smiling, and his originally joking eyes were filled with cold murderous intent, spitting out 3 words coldly, kill me. As soon as he finished speaking, a group of strong men who had been standing behind him had already raised the sharp blades in their hands, and drops of blood spattered from the sharp blades. Came down, shouted and rushed towards Nades and Jason. Various weapons instantly emitted lights of various colors. This group of big men were all spiritual masters of the 3rd level or above. Nades's face, he instantly turned pale and ran towards Jason's location. Behind the crowd, Israel's mouth was grinning high, and his eyes were as ferocious as a wolf. He liked the feeling of killing, and he even liked seeing the despair in other people's eyes. For him, this was what a joyful thing. You 3, hurry up, I'll stop them. Gandalf's eyes widened in anger, he roared, and he was about to rush forward. Suddenly an extremely surging and violent spiritual power fluctuation suddenly surged out around Gandalf. Under this spiritual power fluctuation, Gandalf, as a 5th level low-level sect spiritual master, felt like a dragon in a violent hurricane. A small boat sailing in the waves may be smashed to pieces by huge waves at any time. This Gandalf made a horrified sound in his mouth. But countless dazzling golden lights that almost pierced the sky suddenly lit up. He was originally roaring and shouting, with a fierce momentum and a fierce look. The dozen or so big men holding sharp blades who rushed towards me suddenly stopped. Their eyes were wide open and full of horror. A trace of blood slowly flowed down from their foreheads. There was a person. Refers to a round hole with a thickness. Plop 10. There was a neat sound of falling in the whole laboratory, and all the corpses of the scholars fell to the ground in an instant, which was a spectacle. At the door, Israel's face was full of shock. The look in his eyes showed incomparable horror. Run away. He turned around and shot out of the door. A cold voice that could almost freeze one's blood rang in Israel's ears. Israel's pupils suddenly shrank to the size of pinholes in an instant, and the spiritual power of Wu Jiang's senior sect spiritual master burst out in his eyes. He flew past at high speed, turned around and slashed behind him with all his strength, and met him. That golden light flew by. Israel only felt an overwhelming force coming from the giant axe in his hand. In his horrified eyes, he was instilled with fifth-level spiritual power, and the giant axe forged from hundreds of fine steel, it actually exploded under this golden light and turned into countless fragments. A huge force suddenly entered Israel's body along his arm, shaking all the internal organs in his body. He fell heavily to Ruanzi outside the laboratory, and spit out a mouthful. Blood. Israel's face was pale. Previously, he just instinctively felt that he was no match for the one-armed man, but he never imagined that he, a dignified fifth-level senior spiritual master, would be unable to withstand the opponent's attack. Looking at the cold gaze of Renaud not far away, Reisel's face was filled with a look of extreme fear. He begged, "No, you can't kill me. Rong is a member of the Dax family. If you want to kill me, you will never leave the city of Santa Fe. Chief Marga will avenge me one by one." Renaud's left arm was slightly raised, and there was no emotion in the cold sunlight. "No," Israel roared, his eyes desperate. "Chief Marga, you must avenge me." An extremely loud roar suddenly burst out from Israel's mouth. This mournful roar, using all his strength, spread far away and rumbled over the nearby streets. A golden light flashed across his eyes, which suddenly widened with deep disbelief. His eyes gradually dimmed and lost their energy. In the heart of his chest, a blood hole, the size of a bowl, appeared there, gurgling with blood. Choke. Renaud put away his sword and turned around. During the whole process, he didn't say a word, and his face was cold and expressionless. After the Bite Song Augustus incident, Renaud's character became much colder, and his attacks became more ruthless. His heart was filled with pressure that ordinary people could not imagine. Yu Gandalf looked at Renaud in surprise, his mouth wide open, but he couldn't finish his words with disdain. Then his eyes fell on Jason, who had a calm face next to him, and something suddenly dawned on him. "I'm so stupid. This young man seems to have a high status from the aura, plus his own attainments in elixirs. With such a genius elixir, how could he not be protected by an expert? Master Gandalf, please continue." Jason turned and looked at Gandalf, as if nothing happened before. That was about 8 years ago. Gandalf wiped the cold sweat from his forehead and continued to speak. "I once heard in the City of Chaos that someone got the Cloud Mist spirit fruit. It was an adventure group. Unintentionally we went deep into the depths of the cloud swamp, and suffered heavy casualties in the end. I heard that only a few people from the entire adventure group came out at the end, which caused quite a stir in the City of Chaos. However, after the members of the adventure group returned to the City of Chaos, they mysteriously disappeared, and there was no news about the Cloud Mist spirit fruit. No one knew where the members of the adventure group had gone." "Disappeared?" Jason frowned deeply. Gandalf glanced at Jason, nodded and said, "Well, many people think that they were killed and cheated. After all, such things are too common in the jaws of chaos, but I know what happened in the City of Chaos that night. The 3 major families seem to be taking action. If Lee wants to find the Cloud Mist spirit fruit, it is most likely to be in the hands of these 3 major families in the entire Chaos territory. He can also go to the trading center of the Chaos City to have a look, but if you want to go there, you must be a local force in the City of Chaos." 3 major families," Jason murmured. "In the center of the territory of Chaos, there is a City of Chaos, where the gathering of the territory of Chaos is. In the trade center, countless rare materials and treasures are usually circulated to the City of Chaos, and those who control the City of Chaos are the 3 most powerful families among the dozens of forces in the entire territory of Chaos. The Curie family, the Perret family. The three major families of the Euler family and the Euler family are recognized as the most powerful forces in the entire Chaos territory. Each family has rare 7th-level Emperor spiritual masters. The top experts among these three families are among the Emperor spiritual masters. The strength is also extraordinary, because there are several forces in the Li Yuan territory that also have imperial spiritual masters, but there are only 3 major families recognized in the entire Chaos territory. If you want to get the Yunling spirit fruit, it seems that the only way is to go to this Chaos territory in this city. Treasures like Yunwu spirit fruit are usually only used at critical moments. It is very possible that they are kept for 8 years without being used. Even if the Yunwu spirit fruit is gone, this chaotic city, it is also the most well-informed in the entire territory of Chaos, and it is also the trading center for treasures. If you want to enter this city of Chaos, you must be a local force. This rule can't help but give Jason a headache. Just at this moment, one by one nades, who had been standing quietly beside him, suddenly knelt in front of Jason, his eyes red. Jason was stunned for a moment. Jace, Sr., please help us, the king's family. Nader's head hit the ground heavily, tears streaming from his eyes. What Israel said before made Nader's extremely anxious at this moment. Listening to what Israel said, it is obvious that the Dax family has already taken action against the king's family, and if the Malga clan leader of the Dax Jean family is promoted to the 6th level as Israel said, intermediate spiritual master, then the king's family would not be able to withstand the attack of the Dax family. He is a 3rd-level spiritual master, but there is nothing he can do here. However, Renault's power previously made Nades feel like a dying man had found a life-saving straw. Renault, who was able to kill Israel, a 5th-level senior spiritual master, was at least a low-level 6th-level spiritual master, and perhaps more powerful. At this critical moment, Naders had no choice but to become a living doctor. 2 of you, please, as long as you 2 are willing to save the Rong Kongxi family. Our Kongxi family is willing to serve you 2 as the masters. Everything in the family is free for the 2 of you to search for. 1 inch Nades' constant heavy, he hit the hard floor of the laboratory, and his forehead turned blood red in an instant. The 2 of us are the masters? In this way, wouldn't it be possible to enter the breakout center of the City of Chaos in the name of the King's family? A thought suddenly flashed through Jason's mind. Jason and Renault looked at each other, both seeing what the other person meant. You 2, if you can, please help the Kongxi family. Gandalf on the side also said, the patriarch of the Kongxi family, Tyson, saved his life when he was in trouble. If the 2 of you are willing to help the Jean Kongxi family, and I am willing to accompany you to the City of Chaos. I have also stayed in this City of Chaos for a while, and I understand it fairly well. And furthermore, I think you 2 also unlike people with the territory of Chaos. The entire territory of Chaos is a complex force. I have traveled to the territory of Chaos for a while before, and I think I can bring some help to you 2. Gandalf also sighed in his heart. Although he has prepared elixirs for the Khan's family over the years, he has actually repaid the Khan's family's debt to him, but now that he sees the Khan's family in trouble, he still feels a little unbearable. More importantly, with his vision as a 5th-level low-level elixir master, he understood that the strength of Renault in front of him was definitely not as simple as that of a 6th-level low-level spiritual master. Let's go. Jason said calmly and took the lead towards the door of the laboratory. Walk away. Naders and Gandalf were stunned for a moment. What are you still doing? I didn't expect that by that time, your Khan's family will only be left with a pile of rubble and corpses. The faces of Naders and Gandalf suddenly showed a hint of joy. Naders jumped up from the ground and rushed out the door. The mansion of the Khan's family. The originally magnificent mansion, but now it is a mess. Kill. A large number of spiritual masters roared, waving their weapons, and rushed into the Kong Jean family's mansion crazily, killing them wantonly. These spiritual masters are all elite spiritual masters trained by the Dax family. Each of them has reached the strength of a third-level spiritual master. The leading figures among them are even fourth-level heavenly spiritual masters, and there are even some fifth-level sect spirits. Division. Blood splattered and heads rolled down. Whether they were members of the Kongsi family, guards, maids, or slaves, they all died tragically under a large number of sharp blades. Marga, I'm going to kill you. In the courtyard inside the Kongsi family mansion, an old man with black and white hair was fighting with an old man with white hair and a boyish face on the field in the middle of the courtyard. The person who transported him was the only sixth-level low-level spiritual master of the Kongsman tribe, Great Elder Dias. The fiery red spiritual power and the earthy yellow spiritual power overflowed across the entire venue, like a stormy wave crashing on the shore, and it was extremely ferocious. On one side of the compound, Tyson, the banner leader of the Kongsi family, was leaning against a stone pillar with a pale face at the moment. His right hand was covering the mouth of the cuckoo, and blood was gurgling out of it. Beside him, there were a group of the frightened family members. Each of them held weapons in their hands, but their legs were trembling, their bodies were shaky, and they had no intention of fighting at all. Haha, Diaz, stop resisting. It's useless no matter how much you resist. In the venue, Melga, who was promoted to an intermediate spiritual master not long ago, was able to do so with a smile on his face under Diaz's attack. He had just captured the Neal family, but there was not much damage. Seeing that he was about to unify the entire city of Santa Fe, he felt extremely proud and happy in his heart. Looking at Melga, who was easily resisting his attack in front of him, Diaz felt extremely gloomy in his heart. Marga cultivates the spiritual power of the earth element, and his defense is the strongest among all elements. Long before he was promoted to an intermediate spiritual master, he was no match for him. Now after he was promoted to an intermediate spiritual master, his defense, his strength has been greatly improved. No matter how he attacks, the opponent can easily resist. On the other side of the field, there was a group of Dax family members holding sharp knives. They all had smiles on their faces and watched the battle in the middle of the field leisurely. From time to time, they burst into laughter, looking extremely annoyed. However, although they all acted extremely relaxed, it can be seen from their hands that clenched their weapons that although they had a chance to win, they never relaxed in their hearts. In a place like the territory of chaos, as long as the enemy is not completely killed, relaxing during the battle will definitely be fatal. Standing at the front of all the Dax family members is a middle-aged man with only an inch of hair and dark skin. This man is Obama, the third elder of the Dax family. His strength has also reached the 6th level. At the level of a spiritual master, he grinned and stared coldly at the middle of the field. The more the beating, the more anxious Diaz became. If it was just Malga, as a low-level spiritual master, he would be able to escape even if he couldn't defeat him. But now, with Obama watching eagerly from the side, he could escape even if he wanted to, and it's simply impossible. Is it possible that our Kongsi family will be destroyed here today? A trace of sadness filled the heart of the great elder Diaz. In the territory of chaos, the destruction of a family is too rare. There are also some other small clans that have been destroyed by the Kongsi family. Now, is it finally the turn of the Kongsi family? Diaz, you are still not paying attention when fighting me. You are looking for death. Suddenly, a sneer came from Malga's mouth on the opposite side, and a khaki light suddenly burst out from his body. The earth collapsed. Malga caught the moment when Diaz lost consciousness, held the thin sword wrapped in boundless earth spiritual power, and crushed towards Diaz like a mountain. The air trembled, and everything around Diaz's body it seemed to be trembling under this attack. Not good. Diaz's face suddenly changed color, and he quickly pulled the sword forward in his hand. Boom! There was an explosion, and Diaz's frightened face instantly turned extremely red, and then turned pale. Pfft! A mouthful of blood spurted out from his mouth, staining the rocks on the ground red. Great Elder! Tyson and others showed a trace of worry on their faces, exclaimed in surprise, and their eyes showed a light of despair. Their only hope of survival was with the great elder Dias, but now that Dias was injured, their hearts trembled. Dias Marga held a sharp sword and looked down at Dias, who fell on the ground. The history of 3 families ruling Santa Fe City is over. From this moment on, the rulers of the entire Santa Fe City, we are the only one in the Dax family, and all of you, please die. The earthy yellow light on Malga's body became more and more powerful, and the sword in his hand was raised high, like a god of war. Looking at his feet, his generals were defeated. In the city of chaos, failure meant death. Malga, even if I die, I won't let you have an easy time. Diaz gritted his teeth tightly with blood at the corner of his mouth, roaring with extremely resentful anger in his mouth. A fiery red light suddenly burst out from his body, and the scorching air waves burned and distorted the surrounding air. Fire wind. Diaz's whole body rose with scorching flames, and the spiritual power in his body burned instantly. Humph, do you think you can hurt me if you are brave and not afraid of death? Ridiculous. Malga's sarcastic voice sounded in Diaz's ears, with a disdainful smile on his lips. Okay, I'll let you see how powerful the intermediate spiritual master is. Malga stood proudly in the middle of the field, with radiance shining all over his body, like the moon god paper descending. As he slashed with the long heart in his hand, the fire attacks released by Diaz collapsed one after another. It collapsed. He was seriously injured and at a different level. Even if he tried his best, he could not resist the opponent's attack. I'm not willing to give in, Diaz roared angrily, his eyes almost bursting with fire, and his eyes were cracking, but there was nothing he could do. He could only watch the opponent's long sword pointed at him and slashed down. Great Elder, the crowd under the Kongsi family banner let out a desperate roar. Song. At the moment when the sword was less than half a meter away from Diaz and was about to hit Diaz, a golden light suddenly appeared from nowhere and directly hit the long sword in Malga's hand. Superior. The crisp sound of gold and iron clashing sounded, and Malga stepped back. The long sword in his hand was almost unable to be grasped by this huge force. Who? Malga's face was as gloomy as water, and he looked around coldly. At the entrance of the compound, a figure with one hip and a long sword in his left hand slowly appeared in front of everyone. Behind him, Jason, Naos, and Gandalf also appeared one by one. Senior. Seeing Reno, Tyson's face showed a hint of joy as he lay there, and he shouted loudly. The great elder Diaz also instantly understood who the other party was. He escaped from death. He was so excited that his whole body trembled. As for the rest of the people present, no one knew who the one but man who suddenly appeared was. Who is your excellency? This is the fight for the city of Santa Fe between our Dax family and the Kang's family. It would be better for you not to get involved randomly. Master Gandalf, you don't know the rules of the territory of chaos. Right. There was a hint of coldness on Malga's face, and the opponent's previous blow made him feel a little wary. In the territory of chaos, when the main forces compete for a city or territory, outsiders are not allowed to intervene at will, otherwise they will be ostracized by the entire territory of chaos forces. In Malga's mind, he naturally believed that the beast-armed man was the Master Gandalf had met in the territory of chaos. He had previously sent Israel to bring the Master Gandalf back to his family. It seemed that Nizrael is probably in dire straits. Humph, Malga, this is Mr. Jess and the mobile phone, W Alpha P *25800.N, Nade shouted loudly from the side, but when he introduced Renault, he discovered that, until now, he actually didn't know Renault's name, so he snorted coldly. Our Kongsi family has already regarded them as the two masters. They too can represent our Kongsi family. What else do you have to say? Serve the two of them as your master? Malga narrowed his eyes slightly, and a trace of murderous intent emerged from his eyes. There was a flash in his eyes. Your Excellency, I advise you not to meddle in your own business. Don't lose your life just for a little advantage. I'm Melga, the patriarch of the Dax family, 6th level intermediate spiritual master. If you are willing to come to my Dax family, I am willing to let you serve as the guest elder of my Dax family. Melga showed great sincerity, because the strength that Renault showed previously made him feel he was quite afraid, and more importantly, at this juncture, he didn't want to cause trouble. As for inviting this glorified man to be the guest elder, once he unifies the city of Santa Fe and knows the details of the other party, he can still do whatever he wants. What do you think? Marga struck while the iron was hot. 6th level intermediate spiritual master, are you very powerful? A faint smile suddenly appeared on Renault's face, and a small voice sounded over the entire venue and reached the ears of everyone present. After the words fell, while everyone was still savoring the meaning of the certificate, Renault suddenly raised his left hand, and a huge golden sword appeared above his head, slashing down on Melga. Golden spiritual power was raging crazily in the middle of this small field, powerful energy radiating in all directions, and even the surrounding air could not help but tremble. You sensing the powerful power contained in the shadow of Renault's giant sword, Melga's face suddenly changed color, and he roared, and the earth-yellow spiritual power instantly formed a stream of light around his body. At the same time, the long sword in his hand suddenly lifted up, aiming at the phantom of the giant sword and swiping it fiercely. Seeking death, Renault said coldly. Boom! The golden giant sword stood heavily on top of the khaki long sword. The powerful force suppressed it. Melga only felt an irresistible force bombarding him. The long sword infused with powerful earth spiritual power in his hand, in an instant, it shattered like fragile glass. In Melga's horrified eyes, the giant sword condensed with golden spiritual power shattered the long sword in his hand, only paused slightly, and then struck directly on Melga's body. Impossible, the huge energy impact was transmitted, and the rocks on the ground shattered and cracked. Melga murmured, his whole body trembled, and a trace of blood flowed from his 7 orifices. The originally arrogant eyes dimmed in an instant, and he fell heavily to the ground, eyes wide open. Although his body surface was protected by earth spiritual power, under Renault's powerful attack, the internal organs in Melga's body had been shattered into mud the moment the giant sword hit him. To the day he died, he did not understand how he, who had just been promoted to the intermediate level spiritual master and became the number 1 person in the entire Santa Fe city, could not even block the opponent's sword. Patriarch. All the members of the Dax family showed fear, their expressions were dull, and their eyes were filled with disbelief. And all the members of the Kongsi family were all stunned there, their eyes widened and their mouths opened wide. With just one move, the one-but man instantly killed Melga, who had just been promoted to the intermediate level spiritual master and was the top master in the entire Santa Fe city. What kind of strength is this? A super spiritual master, not to mention the number 1 person in Santa Fe city, he is considered a master even in the chaos territory. But under this one-armed man, he can't even carry a sword. All this completely subverted the cognition of everyone present. How is it possible? How is it possible? Many people present murmured, they couldn't believe what they saw before their eyes, because of all this, for them, it was too shocking and too unbelievable. For countless years, these people have lived under the prestige of Melga. Melga's title as the number 1 master and his powerful image have long been deeply ingrained in his mind. It is deeply engraved in the bone marrow and blood of everyone in Santa Fe city, making them unforgettable forever. Those peerless masters in the center of the territory of chaos have only heard about them and have never seen them with their own eyes. In their hearts, Melga is the entire city of Santa Fe. However, at this moment, their sky fell. At first, Tyson even suspected that Renault was a 5th-level senior sect spiritual master, but now he saw that the 5th-level sect spiritual master couldn't let him stand in front of the one-armed man. Not even qualified to draw a sword. What they don't know is that when Renault faced the challenge of Robinho, the 6th-level intermediate spiritual master of the Radigan family, he had killed Robinho with 1 sword. Now, although Renault has broken an arm, his strength cannot be fully utilized, But compared with when he was just promoted to the 7th level low-level Imperial Spirit Master, after these few months of hard training, Renault's strength has also grown by leaps and bounds. Although Marga and Narabinho are both 6th level intermediate spiritual masters, one is a killing god trained by the top family in the Kingdom of Orlando, and the other is only the number 1 master in the city outside the City of Chaos, and he was only there not long ago. Having just been promoted to the intermediate level of spiritual master, he was naturally helpless against Renault's powerful attack. No, let's go. In front of the crowd of Dax family, Obama's face instantly turned pale, without a trace of blood, and then he flew out of the yard like lightning. Faced with a supermaster who could kill the leader of the Malga clan with one sword, Obama knew that his strength was in front of him, and it was probably just a matter of one sword. The moment Obama escaped, the rest of the Dax family realized what was going on and ran away with panic on their faces. "Senior, stop him quickly. That man is Obama, the 3rd elder of the Dax family. He is the only 6th level spiritual master left in the Dax family." From the side, Naders shouted hurriedly. "Oh?" Renault stared at the past with cold eyes, and a powerful murderous aura spurted out from where Renault was standing. The temperature in the entire venue seemed to suddenly drop a few degrees, and even the sunlight projected from the sky seemed to have a hint of murderous intent. Chill. Not far away, Obama, who was running fast, suddenly felt a chill envelope him. He had never felt such a cold and powerful murderous aura. He felt like an ant in the winter snow, without any trace of anything. Room for resistance. The blood coagulated, the body stiffened, and fear emerged from the deepest part of my heart irresistibly. A shocking wave of spiritual power came from his back, but his body stiffened and he just rushed forward without daring to look back. "Your name is Obama? Does it feel good to invade everywhere?" Reno's cold voice suddenly sounded in Obama's ears. "No, you can't kill me. My son is Cristo. He has joined the Perret family. If you kill me, he will avenge me." Obama yelled desperately. "Really? Then let him come to me," Renault said indifferently. Boom. An unparalleled golden sword rainbow burst out from his left hand, streaked across the entire space, and instantly hit Obama, who was running at full speed. Pfft, one by one, Obama's eyes suddenly widened, and he made a whooshing sound from his mouth, and fell heavily to the ground while flying at high speed. The blood dyed the soil under him red. What the hell, people always learn to fear and repent when death comes? Renault murmured, looking at Obama's body in the distance, and suddenly held the long sword extremely tightly with his left hand, until the phalanges white. His servant couldn't help but tremble at this moment, with a hint of deep sadness in his eyes. "I want to hold on to this sword tightly to protect the people I want to protect and the family I want to protect." He looked at Jason and shouted loudly in his heart, "I want to keep getting stronger, for 10 years, there are still 10 years, Augustus, the Daos family, you wait." Renault's nails were deeply embedded in his flesh, but he was completely unaware of it. "Malga is dead, Obama is dead, kill the Dax family." Diaz shouted loudly in the venue, with a flush of excitement on his face. "Yes, kill back to the Nadax family." Patriarch Tyson also said excitedly. "Senior, let's go to the Nadax family together. This Dax family is the first family in Santa Fe City. The family has countless treasures. If you pay off the treasure, Senior, go to Shauna." Nadas suggested. "You go ahead, we won't go." Renault and Jason looked at each other and said. "Then Senior, just wait here for our good news." Diaz, with a huge look on his face, led all the remaining members and guards of the Kang's family, and rushed towards the location of the Dax family with murderous intent. The Marga patriarch of the Dax family is dead, and the elder Obama is dead. The Marga patriarch of the Dax family is dead, and the elder Obama is dead. All the members of the Kang's family fought back to the Dax family while fighting on the street. He shouted in his mouth. What? How is it possible that the Malga clan leader of the Dax family died? Didn't it mean that he was promoted to an intermediate spiritual master? The Dax family just destroyed the Niu family, and killed another one before. After entering the Kongsi family, why did the Malga clan leader die a moment later? Yes? The streets are full of members of the Kang's family now. What's going on? Could it be that the team of the Dax family was defeated by the Kang's family? The deafening sound of fighting from the Neil family and the Kang's family has already reached the ears of everyone in Santa Fe City. The news that all the people in Santa Fe City received at the beginning was that Dax, the leader of the Malga clan, Jean Quanwen, has reached the intermediate level of spiritual master. He has already destroyed the Neil family and is about to destroy the Kang's family. But in the blink of an eye, everything has changed. This makes these people they are extremely confused. Of course, doubts are doubts. The people just keep their doors closed. Fighting between families like this. As the natives of the Chaos territory, they have experienced too much. For them, no matter which family wins the final victory, the situation is the same. The Dax family's mansion is in the East City area of Santa Fe City. The mansion occupies an extremely large area and has many beautiful maids. Chief Marga is a person who loves beauty very much. Outside the gate, several guards were paying close attention to everything around them. Today, the family attacked the other two major families in Santa Fe City. After today, there will be only one family in the entire Santa Fe City. For these guards, they are naturally extremely worried. Of excitement. Those members who had escaped from the Kang's family before did not dare to return to the family mansion, and these guards had no idea at all. At this moment, a burst of shouting suddenly came from the distance. When several guards listened carefully, their expressions suddenly changed. But they still couldn't believe it. At this moment, a dense crowd appeared at the end of the street in the distance, rushing over fiercely. The two leaders held two heads high in their hands. With the strength of these guards, they could naturally see the two heads clearly. The face of a person's head. Escape. The guards at the door were already frightened and ran towards the other direction of the street. On this day, the sound of fighting continued from the afternoon to the evening, and then gradually subsided. In some shops and markets of the three major families in Santa Fe City, corpses were everywhere, and blood flowed everywhere. All ordinary people in Santa Fe City, the people all went to bed at night as if nothing had happened. For them, all they had to do was wait for the winning family to announce its power tomorrow. This is the realm of chaos, where human lives are like grass. When Jason and Reno were looking for the cloud spirit fruit in the territory of chaos, to the north of Stern Continent was the boundless North Sea. In the waters north of the North Sea, there was an Iceland, also known as the Arctic icefield. The area of Iceland is not large, about the same as that of the Northwest countries. However, except for some powerful spiritual beasts, there are indeed very few humans in the entire Arctic ice sheet. But in the north of Iceland, there is a country, ice country. In this ice country, almost the vast majority of spiritual masters are basically ice spiritual masters. This is just because the air here is filled with a large amount of ice spiritual elements. In the northernmost part of Iceland, it is boundless. Continuous icebergs. Here, the day and night temperature is below -50 degrees. When hot 2 is the coldest, it is close to -100 degrees. Ordinary people simply cannot survive here, even some powerful ice spiritual masters. You may not necessarily be able to withstand such a cold climate. However, this harsh and peaceful environment allows some potential cultivators to live here. Whoosh, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, the cold wind blew on the iceberg like a knife. Year-round extremely low temperatures make the ice much harder than iron. On an iceberg dial nearly 10,000 meters high, a muscular middle-aged man was sitting cross-legged with his upper body exposed and his eyes closed. His body was wrapped in layers of thick ice, like an ice sculpture. This man was Wayne, who left Jason and went to the Arctic ice field. Hello, 111111111111111111111. After an unknown amount of time, a surging spiritual power flashed through Wayne's body, and at the same time his closed eyes suddenly opened. Boom! The ice on Wayne's body suddenly burst open, and then he stood up. He stood up and looked at the endless icebergs in the distance, with a hint of joy in his eyes. It has only been less than 2 months, and I have already returned to the peak of the 8th level. Jason, wait for me to break through. That day was the day that I, Wayne, returned to Sternland. Immediately, Wayne's figure flashed and disappeared into the vast ice and snow. The night gradually deepened, and the killing finally ended. The entire city of Santa Fe was completely silent, and the air was still vaguely filled with the smell of blood. However, the mansion of the Khan's family was bustling with activity and brightly lit. Busy people were walking back and forth in the mansion, with undisguised joy on their faces. Many people were grinning. After today, the Khan's family will become the first family in the entire Santa Fe city. One family rules the entire city of Santa Fe. Boxes of treasures were moved from the Dax family to the Kantz family mansion, and were piled up in a room in the mansion. There were more than 10 large boxes in total, most of which were the Dax family's treasures, and some belonged to the Neal family, another large family in Santa Fe City. It's a pity that the Dax family had just wiped out the Neal family and moved the Neal family's treasures home. Before they could be properly inventoried, they were destroyed by the Kongsi family. Naturally, all this was advantageous to the Kongsi family. Master Gandalf, where are the 2 adults? I have brought all the treasures back and asked the 2 adults to count them. At the door of the inner courtyard of the Kang's family mansion, Elder Diaz and Chief Tyson stood there respectfully. Asked Gandalf. Although the Kongsi family finally won, Diaz and Tyson were not arrogant. They understood in their hearts who made their family change from a situation of almost destruction to where they are now. Although the promise to serve Jason and Reno as the main ones was only what Naders said to Jason at the beginning, when Diaz and Tyson found out, instead of blaming Naders, they praised Naders for doing the right thing. The 2 adults have rested. The great elder and patriarch Tyson will come back to see them tomorrow. Gandalf was very satisfied with the attitude of Diaz and Tyson, which showed that the 2 of them were not dazzled by the victory. With the strength of those 2 adults, they can save them, but they can also destroy them with a wave of their hands. Since the 2 adults have rested, I won't disturb you. Diaz nodded respectfully, turned around and was about to leave, but suddenly stopped, hesitated, and asked cautiously, Master Gandalf, that Lord's strength, humph, why do you ask this? Gandalf's expression was serious. Diaz, Tyson, you 2 are smart people, but don't do anything stupid. Gandalf advised, with a stern face. He still has feelings for the Kang's family, otherwise he wouldn't have begged Jason for rescue yesterday. Although Diaz and Tyson's attitudes are good now, he is worried that they don't know the difference between heaven and earth, so he can't help but remind them in the end make a sound. Diaz's face changed, and he waved his hands hurriedly. Please don't misunderstand, Master Gandalf. I'm just asking. Please rest assured, Master. Diaz is not such an ungrateful person. There are 2 people in the Kongsi family now. It was given by 2 adults. From the moment the 2 adults appeared in the afternoon, the Kongsi family was the subordinates of the 2 adults. The Kongsi family will naturally correct their attitude. It's good that you know. Gandalf nodded, his face softened a little, and he said, the strength of that adult is definitely not as simple as you think. Don't blame me for not reminding you. With the support of that adult, your Kongsi family can rule the city of Santa Fe, otherwise, with the current strength of your Kongsi family, any surrounding force can destroy your Kongsi family. Diaz and Tyson nodded repeatedly, and their eyes became more and more serious at the same time. The brighter, originally in their minds, Renault was able to kill Malga, who had just been promoted to the intermediate level spiritual master, with 1 sword. He should be an extremely powerful 6th-level senior spiritual master, but now they heard what Master Gandalf said. Diaz and Tyson looked at each other with a touch of shock and surprise in their eyes, and immediately looked at Gandalf at the same time. Could it be that Lord is a 7th-level emperor? Why do you care so much? Don't ask questions that shouldn't be asked. Don't you two understand this simple truth? Gandalf snorted coldly. I understand. Diaz and Tyson nodded repeatedly. Master Gandalf, in this case, we will leave first. Looking at the two people leaving, Gandalf's eyes were dark and clear. Uncertain, with his identity and knowledge as a 5th-level low-level spiritual medicine master, he can naturally see that Renaud is definitely not as simple as a 6th-level high-level spiritual master. At first, he decided to follow Jason, firstly to help the king's family, secondly because Jason's unique preparation techniques and attainments in elixir science frightened him, and he wanted to learn from Jason's side, and thirdly because after spending so long in Santa Fe City, he didn't want to stay any longer. Now after discovering Renaud's strength, he also became curious about Jason's identity. Looking up at the sky, he murmured, "They are looking for the cloud spirit fruit." Now exactly 8 years have passed. Maybe, no, he shook his head vigorously, now is not the time, we need to wait, the Perret family. There was a trace of incomparable hatred in his eyes, and he gritted his teeth. Voice, Brother Rommel, don't worry, I will avenge your Desert Fox adventure group one day. This Kongsi family is disgusting. In a mountain forest far away from Santa Fe City, several members of the Dax family holding sharp knives were looking at the outline of Santa Fe City in the distance, uttering resentment in their mouths. The one-armed man was so strong that he killed the Malga clan leader with one sword stroke, and Elder Obama could not escape his attack. A thin man, with a trace of fear in his eyes at this moment, spoke in a trembling voice. Damn, we are about to succeed. Where did those two guys suddenly appear from? Brother, what should we do now? What can we do? We can't go back to Santa Fe City. Now we can only go to the City of Chaos to join Christo and tell him what happened here. If he can get the support of the Perret family, maybe we can end this hatred. The Kess family can still retaliate, otherwise, they will never even think about it in this life. The leading man spoke angrily. Let's go to the City of Chaos. The group of people packed up and flew towards the center of the territory of chaos. Their figures flashed twice in the forest and quickly disappeared into the night. While there was a commotion outside the Kang's family mansion, both Jason and Renaud were practicing in their rooms. The pressure from the Dawes family made Renaud like a clockwork machine, practicing constantly every moment. During these days with D. Lin, Rost and Wayne, he had to face I have learned a lot about the realm of the intermediate imperial spiritual master. Especially before leaving, D. Lin, who was about to break through to the intermediate level of imperial spiritual master, had a deliberate discussion with him, which gave him a certain understanding of how to advance to the intermediate level of imperial spiritual master. Gudong. In the room, Renaud took out a bottle of light golden elixir from his body and drank it. A strong golden spiritual power instantly appeared in the meridians in his body. Renaud closed his eyes tightly and circulated the 7th-level low-level spiritual power in the meridians over and over again, absorbing the golden spiritual elements in the world. He is also completely purifying the powerful golden spiritual power brought by the spiritual potion and integrating it into his own spiritual power. These spiritual potions were prepared for him by Jason. With these spiritual potions, Renaud could accumulate the golden spiritual power in his body much faster without having to rely entirely on absorbing spiritual elements from the surrounding world. In just a few months, the spiritual power in Renaud's body, which had just been promoted to the 7th-level low-level imperial spiritual master, has reached the peak of the 7th-level low-level emperor. It is only a little short of the 7th-level intermediate level, but he can't just break through by taking the spiritual storage potion. This requires him to constantly understand, until one day, he breaks through the obstacle. While Renaud was practicing, Jason was also practicing in his room. Today, more than 2 months have passed since Jason prepared the elixir during the battle in the royal city and entered the third-level advanced spiritual master realm. After an ordinary spiritual master becomes a third-level spiritual master, only the third-level meridians in the body can run spiritual power. However, the spiritual god technique practiced by Jason, after Jason's bodybuilding spiritual liquid continuously widens the veins, not only the third-level meridians can a large amount of spiritual power is stored in the meridians of the body, the 1st to 9th level meridians as well as the 1st and 2nd level meridians. With so many meridians running at the same time to absorb spiritual power, Jason's cultivation speed is 10 times that of ordinary spiritual masters. Moreover, the spiritual power absorption speed of the spiritual god technique is much faster than that of ordinary exercises. Jason has been practicing for 2 months. The training is almost equivalent to the 2 years of training of an ordinary spiritual master. Now the spiritual power in Jason's body has already reached the peak of the 3rd level, and he is only a thin layer away from the 4th level low-level heavenly spiritual master. However, it is this layer of film that has been blocking Jason's breakthrough. The difficulty of advancing from a 3rd-level spiritual master to a 4th-level heavenly spiritual master is actually no easier than it is for Renault to advance from a low-level imperial spiritual master to an intermediate imperial spiritual master. From a 3rd-level spiritual master to a 4th-level heavenly spiritual master, it is a breakthrough from a low-level professional to an intermediate-level professional. The 1st-level spiritual disciple generates spiritual power in the meridians in the body. The 2nd-level spiritual master can instill spiritual power into the body surface to bring resistance to the body, and the 3rd-level spiritual master can instill spiritual power into weapons. Among them, the 4th-level heavenly spirit master can form a spiritual light on the weapon. This layer of sword light or sword light is not a simple spewing of spiritual power, but a change in the spiritual power structure after entering the 4th level from the 3rd level, which is a qualitative change. Moreover, there are basically no spiritual skills in the first 3 levels of the spiritual god technique. Except for simple spiritual power usage skills such as collapse fist and sneak step, the rest are completely empty. This makes Jason quite puzzled. What makes Jason even more confused is that general exercises have fixed attributes such as Agni fire technique, which is a fire-based exercise, and Jinshinju, which is a metal-based exercise. Generally, a spiritual master will use the attributes of his body based on his body's attributes. All practice the same system of exercises, and very few people practice 2 or more systems, especially when they absorb spiritual rings. It does not mean that a fire spiritual master cannot absorb water spiritual rings, but the power of different attributes will cause resistance, which will eventually lead to failure of absorption and even the death of the spiritual master. Even if the absorption is successful, it will not be absorbed by good luck. It will definitely be able to activate the spiritual skills brought by the spiritual ring. However, until now, Jason did not know the true properties of this spiritual god art. The 9-headed fearful phantom is of the spiritual system, the golden-ringed silver python is of the gold system, and the immortal fire phoenix is of the fire system. The spirit rings of these 3 different systems appeared on Jason's body at the same time, but they did not affect Jason. The spiritual power in Mori's body conflicted, causing the slightest problem. What makes Jason even more depressed is that with ordinary techniques, you can rely on constantly taking spiritual storage potions of this level to directly push the spiritual power in your body to the peak of that level. But for this spiritual god technique, for example, when Jason was at the 3rd level intermediate level, no matter how many 3rd level intermediate spiritual storage potions he took, he could not quickly reach the peak of the 3rd level intermediate level. Although the spiritual power in the body will surge instantly after taking the spiritual storage potion, it cannot be completely integrated into the 3rd level intermediate spiritual power in the meridians and become one's own spiritual power. Therefore, if Jason wants to truly improve his strength, he can only continue to practice. Fortunately, there are now 12 major meridians in Jason's body that can be cultivated at the same time, and the speed is not slow. If there is a chance, Jason really wants to go and visit the ancient ruins where he found the spiritual god technique and the Vulcan liquid formula in his previous life. However, that place is extremely dangerous. With Jason's current strength, he will definitely die if he goes there. There was no life, so Jason had no choice but to suppress this thought. During the two people's practice, a night passed in the blink of an eye. In the early morning, the bright sunshine spreads down from the sky and shines on people, giving people a comfortable feeling full of hope. On the street, the guards of the Kant's family were patrolling with swords hanging from their waists, and they informed the people of Santa Fe City about the ownership of Santa Fe City. Of course, some issues such as the merger of the Dax family and the Neal family's properties, tax payment, etc., were also being handled in an orderly manner by other members of the Kant's family. Squeak. The door to Jason's room opened. Feeling the fresh air outside, a smile appeared on Jason's face. A night of practice not only did not make Jason look tired at all, but instead made him look more energetic. From the room next to him, Renaud also walked out. The two of them had just glanced at each other when Gandalf walked in from outside the yard. Two adults, Elder Diaz and Patriarch Tyson, are outside asking for an audience. As a master of elixirs, Gandalf's face was filled with confusion. There is no longer the arrogant look that he had when they first met yesterday. Whether it is Renaud's powerful force or Jason's achievements in elixirs that surpass him, Gandalf has nothing to be proud of anymore. Glancing at him in surprise, Jason smiled and said, "Master Gandalf, you got up really early. You couldn't have come here to wait for us." Gandalf smiled and said, "Master Jace, I didn't get up early, there were two others earlier than me." Gandalf was naturally referring to Diaz and Tyson. Outside the courtyard, Great Elder Diaz and Patriarch Tyson were waiting there with great respect. They had been standing here since early in the morning. However, for such a long time, there was no trace of anxiety and worry on their faces. Impatient, but extremely sincere. If the entire Santa Fe City knew that the current head of Santa Fe City would actually stay here for half an hour without moving a muscle just to wait for two people, I'm afraid everyone would be shocked. Seeing the three Jasons walking out of the inner courtyard, Diaz and Tyson were slightly shaken, and then acted extremely respectful. Two adults, the treasures of the Dax family, the Neal family, and our Khan's family have all been moved together. Please count them. In front of Jason and Reno, Diaz and Tyson people are really like two servants. No matter their movements, expressions, or tone of voice, they are all flawless and without any overstep. The treasures of the Dax family and the Neal family? And those of your Khan's family? A smile appeared on Jason's face. Let's go and have a look. Deep in the Khan's family's mansion, a room. This room is not large, filled with large boxes. Jason opened a box, casually, and his smiling face suddenly froze, and his eyes straightened. The bottom of the box is filled with dark green beads, the size of a thumb, which are Longan stones. Longan stone is generally used in the production of some 3rd level to 5th level elixirs, and is a quite expensive material. Longan stone is not a stone, but a fruit grown from an aromatic vine. This fruit is emerald green before it matures. As long as it is not picked, it will continue to grow. The longer the year, the higher the value. It is said that the dragon's eye stone is very similar to the eyes of a kind of dragon, so it is called the dragon's eye stone. Longan stone can only grow in a humid rainforest environment with abundant spiritual energy, and it is a fruit loved by most spiritual animals. Therefore, extremely old Longan stones rarely appear. Each of the piles of Longan stones in front of me is about the size of a thumb. It grows from the size of a mung bean to the size of a thumb. It takes about 15 years to grow. Such a Longan stone costs approximately 50,000 spirit coins, is expensive, and is 20-year-old Longan stone. Ordinary material stores do not sell it at all. You need to go to some large stores to buy it. The pile of dragon's eye stones in front of me is roughly estimated to be close to 100. A dragon's eye stone of such an excellent grade will cost up to 500,000 spirit coins each in 3,000 years. Now that there are nearly 100 of them appearing all at once, it is still shocking enough. Then he quickly opened another box. In the box was placed 3 thumb-thick, reddish-purple stems of some kind of plant, which looked extremely ordinary. But when Jason's eyes fell on the red-purple stem, he almost exclaimed, "Dream glass stem." If the Longan stone just now can still be bought in the market, then the one in front of him dream glass stems are truly rare materials. Dream glass stems are only produced deep in rotten lands such as swamps. This plant is quite rare and belongs to the shrub category. It has only one segment at the beginning and grows every 10 years. When the stem reaches 100 years old, a reddish-purple liquid will be produced in the stem of the Diffing festival. The composition of this liquid is complex. Even 3,000 years later, no one can determine its composition. The only thing that is known is that after the preparation of this liquid, it will be of great help to the spiritual master's breakthrough, and once this liquid is released from after the dream glass stem's overflow, it cannot be stored. If not used within 10 hours, it will lose its effectiveness. It is the most important material for making ultimate potions. Unexpectedly, there is a dream glass stem among the treasures of Santa Fe City, and there are more than one. Even for Jason in his previous life, this dream glass stem is not something that can be obtained just by thinking about it. Suddenly, Jason realized that he had made a very serious mistake. At first, he thought that there could be no great treasures in Santa Fe, so he didn't take it seriously. Indeed, there would be some great treasures in a large family in a medium-sized city, but Jason forgot that this is the Cloud Swamp, one of the 7 most dangerous places in the mainland, and one of the places with the richest elixir materials in the mainland. Just like in the center of the continent, the spiritual cores of spirit beasts are absolutely extremely precious and rare, but on the periphery of the spirit beast mountains, some low-level spiritual cores can definitely be seen everywhere. Master Gandalf on the side finally felt relieved when he saw Jason's expression. At the same time, he also confirmed Jason's identity, a powerful elixir from outside the territory of chaos. To adults, all the treasures here are the treasures of our 3 major families. Elder Diaz said with some anxiety, in addition, the 3 major families of ours combined, there are unnamed spiritual cards, each containing 10 million spiritual coins. Not bad, not bad. As each box was opened, Jason's face turned red, which was a sign of excitement. In fact, except for the fact that Jason was a little surprised when he saw the dragon eye stone and the dream glass stem when he was not mentally prepared at the beginning, the excitement now is not because these materials will be rare 3,000 years later, but because here, Jason saw several main materials for making 4th-level extreme potions. The ultimate potion, like the healing potion, is a universal potion, that is, it is available at every level and has the same effect, but the materials required for each level are different. As the name suggests, extreme potions can be taken by a spiritual master when he encounters a barrier in advancing to the next level. It can help the spiritual master cross the extreme barrier. Like these 4th-level extreme potions, when a 3rd-level advanced spiritual master when attacking a 4th-level low-level heavenly spirit master, after touching the limit barrier, you can take the limit potion to attack the barrier, and your chances of success will be much greater. Although it is not as heaven-defying as the 6th-grade high-grade spiritual potion prepared by Jason last time, which can directly raise people to 1 level, it is also an extremely rare spiritual potion for spiritual masters. But now Jason is stuck in the barrier of the 3rd-level high-level spiritual master. Now with these materials, if a 4th-level extreme potion is prepared, Jason is very sure that he can break through to the 4th-level low-level heavenly master. The realm of the spiritual master. What excites Jason are the main materials of these 4th-level extreme potions, as well as a few rare elixir materials. As for some gems, gold diamonds, etc., Jason is not interested at all. Diaz, do you have a laboratory for elixir masters in your mansion? Jason asked excitedly. The laboratory used by the alchemist? Diaz was stunned. It was obvious that he had no idea why Jason suddenly mentioned this at this time. What? No? Seeing Diaz frozen there, Jason frowned. Ah? Yes, there is, but it's a bit crude and not as good as the laboratory built for Master Gandalf in Fong City. Master Jace, if you need it, I will take you there right away. Diaz came back to his senses and broke out in a cold sweat. He felt a little scared because he didn't answer Jason's question immediately. That's good. Jason's eyes flashed, and then he quickly reported the names of several materials to Gandalf, and said, Master Gandalf, please bring these materials I mentioned to the laboratory immediately. Diaz, where are the 4 anonymous spirit cards? Jason said after asking Gandalf to get some materials. Lord Jess, here. Diaz took out 4 spiritual cards engraved with complex spiritual patterns from his body. These are unnamed spiritual cards jointly issued by the 4 major spiritual currency banks in the mainland. They can be used in the mainland. Cash withdrawals can be made at any of the subordinate Lingbai banks where the 4 major Lingbai banks are located. Jason took 3 of them from Diaz and said, the remaining spirit cards belong to you. As for the gems, gold diamonds, and other works of art and treasures in this room, you all belong to them. Put it away. Well, Master Jace, you'd better put this spirit card away. Our family actually still has nearly 5 million spirit coins in cash, Diaz said hurriedly. Yes, yes. Patriarch Tyson also spoke out, his sincere tone and eyes showing no trace of hypocrisy. Put it away when I tell you to. Jason glared, and an inexplicable and intimidating aura emerged from him inadvertently. Diaz and Tyson suddenly did not dare to speak. In fact, regardless of the special value of the elixir materials contained in these cloud swamps, the combined properties of the 3 major families in Santa Fe City are not as large as the property of the Radigan family in the Kingdom of Orlando. In order to auction Jason's spiritual potion, the Radigan family resold most of their property, losing more than 30% of their property, and exchanged it for nearly 60 million spiritual coins. Regardless of the loss, plus in addition to other properties that cannot be transferred, the entire Radigan family has almost hundreds of millions of spiritual coins in total. Although the Cons family, the Neal family, and the Dax family, as big families that have ruled a city for decades, are certainly much better at amassing money than the Radigan family in the Kingdom of Orlando, in the territory of chaos, every family has a lot of expenses every day. Winning over strong people, buying weapons, elixirs, etc., and more importantly, in this chaotic zone, a merger between families will consume a lot of property. It seems that they are incomparable, but in fact, no matter what they obtain, materials, the combined spiritual coins of the 3 families are only more than 40 million, and one family is only more than 10 million, which is only comparable to a medium-sized family in the Kingdom of Orlando. It is quite difficult to survive. That's why Jason stayed. He gave the Consi family more than 10 million spiritual coins, plus these gems, gold diamonds, etc., that are of no use to Jason. With tens of millions, he can rule Santa Fe City extremely well, even if he meets other people. Such a large amount of property was enough for the Consi family to cope with the attack by the forces. After taking the spirit card, Jason immediately put a lot of rare elixir materials together, waved his hand gently, and suddenly, all the materials that were neatly placed on the ground disappeared in the room instantly. What's going on? Diaz and Tyson were both shocked, and then their eyes fell on Jason's left hand, where he wore a rather ordinary-looking ring. Could it be this is the legendary space ring? Master Jace actually has a space ring on his body? Elder Diaz and Patriarch Tyson both looked at each other in horror, and their hearts were instantly filled with panic. As the leaders of a family, they naturally knew something about the space ring. In Stern Continent, space, the ring is a priceless treasure, a symbol of status and strength. It is a space ring. Although there are legends that someone quoted 100 million spiritual coins, I have never heard of anyone selling the space ring. Even the 7th-level low-level imperial spiritualist D. Lin, known as the #1 master in the Kingdom of Orlando, and even Rost, the 7th-level intermediate imperial spiritualist and the actual leader of the 3 major families of the Kingdom of Orlando, one of the 5 great powers in the Northwest. I have never owned a space ring, which shows how precious it is. In the territory of chaos, if it is possible to possess a space ring, it is only the 3 most powerful families, but it is only possible. At the beginning, Diaz and Tyson, although they were grateful for Jason and Renault's life-saving grace, and were extremely afraid of Renault's strong strength, but for the entire family to regard these 2 as the main ones, it was equivalent to the entire kings. The family has become Jason and Renault's servants, but Diaz and others still have a grudge in their hearts. But now, Diaz and Tyson didn't care at all. Instead, they felt a sense of joy. Such a young boy actually has such a master beside him, and he even owns the priceless space ring. At this moment, Diaz and Tyson even doubted that Jason was a favored prince of which of the 4 major empires in the mainland, even if he wasn't. The prince is also a direct descendant of a top family, and the core member with the right to inherit. Although the Consi family will completely rule Santa Fe City, a medium-sized city in the territory of chaos, and can be considered a force in the territory of chaos, compared with the top families on the mainland, it is like an ant compared with an elephant. The gap is so big that it cannot be calculated rationally. At this moment, Diaz and Tyson, even in their deepest hearts, completely surrendered at the feet of Jason and Renault. Being able to become the subordinates of the top forces on the continent is not only not a shameful thing, but also requires the whole family to celebrate. Celebrate. Master, I will take you to the clan's laboratory right now. Diaz said with great respect. Sensing the subtle change in Diaz's attitude, Jason smiled. He deliberately exposed this space ring in front of Diaz to give the Kang's family a faint statement. So far, it seems that the effect is remarkable. Haha, great Elder Diaz, you don't have to be so polite. Just continue to call me sir. Jason smiled. Even in his previous life, Jason usually asked those who were willing to follow him for life to call him adults instead of master. Master, how is this possible? Diaz said excitedly. Since our Consi family has promised to serve the 2 as masters, we will never go back on our promise. From the moment the 2 masters rescued our Consi family, they are the reborn parents of our Kang's family and the eternal masters of our Kang's family. Diaz looked extremely serious. Yes. Patriarch Tyson said solemnly from the side, our Consi family has the most important commitment. This is the foundation of our family and the ultimate purpose of every member of our Consi family, even to the master no longer wants our Consi family, and the 2 of them are still the masters of our Consi family. Heaven and earth are proof, and the sun and the moon can be used to learn from it. Looking at the righteous Diaz and Tyson in front of him, Jason's heart suddenly, I couldn't laugh or cry, now it's better, these 2 people depend on me for life and death. Under the leadership of Diaz, Jason quickly arrived at the laboratory in the Kang's family mansion. This is a rather tidy laboratory with quite complete equipment. Although it is still somewhat different from Gandalf's laboratory in the city, it is obviously not as crude as what Diaz said before. After a while, Gandalf walked in with some materials in his hand. Behind him, he was followed by Naders, the 2nd young master of the Khan's family. Jason had prepared countless amounts of this extreme potion before. In his previous life, when he began to become famous in the mainland, it was also because of his extreme familiarity with the extreme potion. It could be said that he was very familiar with it. It's just that in this life, he couldn't find the materials before. In addition, he focused more on the cultivation of spiritual masters. He had not encountered many bottlenecks before, and there was no pressure. Invisibly, he was not too enthusiastic about extreme potions. Now under the pressure of the Dawes family, Jason must also improve his strength as soon as possible. The materials here are complete. The most critical materials required for the 4th level extreme potion are available. He can find substitutes for the few materials that are not available. Taste. You must know that each elixir requires different materials. An unavoidable task for the elixir is to find substitutes for the materials. There is not just one formula for a certain function of elixir. Even for the simplest first-level low-grade healing potion, Jason has 9 different formulas. In the eyes of elixir masters, elixirs are full of flexibility. The raw material formulas that are now known are all summarized by previous research. Each kind of elixir, especially those high-level elixirs, often requires nearly 10 or even dozens of materials. It was too difficult to follow these formulas exactly, so the elixir masters came up with a way to find their substitutes. There are many works in this area, such as Material Properties Comparison Chart, Replacement and Reaction between Materials with the Same Physical Properties, etc., which most elixir masters are familiar with. There are some truly powerful elixir masters, and they often have their own to sum up the formula and experience. Of course, if you want to reach this level, you must be at least a 7th level elixir master. And not all materials can be replaced. Each elixir formula has several key materials. These materials are often the key to the efficacy of a bottle of elixir and cannot be replaced. What materials can be replaced, what materials can be used for replacement, how effective the replaced elixir is, and whether there are any side effects, all these together are an extremely profound knowledge. After seeing the materials handed over by Gandalf, Jason couldn't help but nodded. Gandalf was meticulous in his work. He took a considerable amount of each material, and the placement of each material was also very particular. He is indeed a 5th level elixir master. What is the master doing? Does he want Master Gandalf to prepare the elixir? No, looking at the master standing in front of the experimental table, could it be Diaz and Tyson still said he had no idea that Jason was an elixir master. After seeing Jason's actions, he was suddenly filled with doubts. Master Gandalf stood aside with great excitement. Jason's understanding of the beast transformation potion in the market yesterday made the immortal heart full of expectations for Jason. After Jason briefly processed all the materials, he waved his hand and saw several previous materials appearing on the experimental table. Next to the pile of materials is a set of amethyst preparation vessels that reflect magnificent light, which are the prizes from the Elixir Master Conference that Jason exchanged from Sri Lanka. Gandalf's eyes suddenly widened. Oh my god! My god of medicine, what did I see? I was dreaming about an amethyst vessel. This is an amethyst vessel, and I actually saw an amethyst vessel. Gandalf was so excited that he could not stop shouting. Shivering, his thin body swayed like a reed in the wind, and his face was filled with a flush of surprise. There will be no resistance to the penetration of the elixir spiritual consciousness, and it will not cause the slightest change in the medicinal properties of the material. It can improve the stability of the elixir spiritual consciousness and the sensitivity of the spiritual power. There is no need to worry about scorching high temperatures and extremely cold temperatures. It is earthquake resistant, explosion resistant, extremely strong, and has extreme extensibility and plasticity. Gandalf stood there in despair and muttered to himself, his whole person falling into an unconscious frenzy. For a spiritual apothecary, a good set of preparation utensils is equivalent to a weapon in the hands of a spiritual master, which is extremely important. And the amethyst vessel means to a spiritual apothecary, it is equivalent to an artifact for a spiritual master, which is extremely precious. On the mainland, amethyst vessels are equivalent to space rings. They are completely priceless treasures. It is already very rare for a powerful spiritual master to get 1 or 2 of them. However, the young man in front of him has a whole set of this 111111. Gandalf was completely shocked this time. The amethyst vessel shook his heart far more than when Jason prepared the 5th level low-grade beast transformation potion yesterday. It came as a shock. Isn't it just a set of crystal vessels? Is there any need to be so surprised? Nades looked at Gandalf in surprise, and couldn't help but murmured in his mouth. But Yas and others, who didn't know much about elixirs, also looked at the side with dull eyes and exaggerated expressions for no reason. Gandalf's eyes were full of doubts, and he couldn't understand it at all. Isn't it just a set of crystal vessels? When Gandalf heard this, he almost jumped up with excitement. He pointed at Nades beside him, his eyes widened angrily, and he roared, "What do you know, bastard? This is an amethyst vessel. Have you ever heard of amethyst? Do you know the price of this set of amethyst vessels on the mainland?" Nades was so embarrassed that he didn't dare to speak. He had never heard of how valuable this amethyst was. He cherished something and asked cautiously in a low voice, "What kind of deal? Do you need several million spirit coins, 10 or 20 million spirit coins?" For Naders, 1 or 20 million spirit coins are almost equal to the entire Consi family's property is worth it. For a set of small utensils to be worth this price, it should definitely be shocking. 10 or 20 million spirit coins? Hee hee. Gandalf's eyes twitched twice, and he laughed dryly. His eyes were full of disdain, as if he was looking at a country bumpkin who had never seen the world. 10 or 20 million spirit coins? You just want to buy this set of amethyst utensils? You can't even buy an amethyst shard. To tell you the truth, the attention of 11 Dias and others was instantly focused. They were also very curious about how they could compete with Jia Zhongling. Master Gandalf at the master level was so surprised by how much the vessel was worth. Gandalf sneered, priceless treasure, you know, even if you have money, you can't buy it. Amethyst vessels can't be bought just by having money." Arrived. Seeing Naders and others' dumbfounded looks, Gandalf sneered, "The crystal preparation vessels are divided into 7 equal parts, red, orange, yellow, green, blue, and purple. Red crystal is the worst, amethyst is the best, and I have a set of green crystal vessels. It cost me 5 million spiritual coins to buy it. As far as I know, the entire Chaos territory, that is, the Curie family of the 3 top families, has a set of ancestral blue crystal vessels with a market value of 20 million spirit coins. However, even if you have 20 million spirit coins, you may not be able to use it. Being able to buy a set of green crystal utensils on the mainland, these things cannot be measured with simple spiritual coins." As Gandalf told the story, the eyes of Dias and others looking at Jason changed again. When they first discovered that Jason possessed a priceless space ring, they were already deeply shocked by Jason's identity. Live. But now that they discovered that this owner is actually a famous elixir, and also has a set of amethyst vessels that make all the elixirs in the mainland dream of drinking tea, which is a priceless treasure on the mainland, they no longer know how to describe the feelings they feel for Jason at this moment. I felt it. There seemed to be countless layers of fog on Jason's body. When they lifted a layer of fog and thought they could see each other's purpose clearly, they discovered that behind this layer of fog, Jason's body was filled with fog. Instead, it seemed to be more intense, making them unable to see clearly and understand. Jason glanced at Gandalf with understanding. For the first time after the alchemist conference, he discovered that the second-place reward was a set of amethysts. When he picked up the utensils, he was also greatly shocked. But at this time, he had no time to entangle with Gandalf and the others. He had already started making his own preparations. With his hands shaking, he had already brought 3 starlight leaves in front of him. Starlight, the leaves are slightly thicker than your thumb, and the entire leaf is purple. The leaves are plump and plump. On the top, there are dots of light spots. Suddenly, phantoms of light suddenly flew up on the experimental table. The 3 pieces of starlight that were originally placed intact in Jason's hand were in an instant, had turned into a pile of dregs in the waste trough of the experimental table, and in an originally empty amethyst test tube on the side, half a tube of purple transparent liquid with dots appeared. Another phantom flashed, and a dreamglass stem on the experimental table had flown up out of thin air. A subtle whine sounded, and a tiny hole suddenly appeared at one end of the dreamglass stem, which was originally intact at both ends. Finger in a flick, a tube of purple-red liquid automatically spurted out from the hollow stem of the dreamglass stem like a fountain, perfectly splashing into the tube of purple liquid without wasting a drop. In the blink of an eye, a forest of purple liquid appeared. It turned as orange and red as the sun, and people like Gandalf had long been stunned. The elixir master was usually not allowed to be disturbed when he was preparing elixir potions. Jason did not let Gandalf and the others leave. Gandalf and the others were naturally happy to see him. Now they all had their eyes widened, for fear of missing a detail. As the saying goes, laymen watch the excitement, and experts watch the door. What Diaz and others saw were Jason's artistic preparation and his dazzling movements, which made them marvel. However, Gandalf's heart was full of doubts at this moment. He frowned and thought hard, and murmured, "How did Master Jace prepare this?" At the beginning, Gandalf still wanted to kill Jason. He was learning something next to him, but after seeing Jason's movements at this moment, he was completely confused. If you don't talk about reading materials, just come to OO. For such advanced things as the reactions and principles between materials, we can only talk about the processing of materials, such as star grass. Normal preparation should be put into an instrument to crush, squeeze the juice, and finally purify and extract to obtain a complete solution. But Jason in front of him didn't know how he did it. With the movement of his hands, the purple liquid extracted from the starlight leaves appeared in the test tube. The dreamglass stem is even more outrageous. The purple-red liquid in the dreamglass stem is extremely sensitive and cannot be broken with ordinary tools. Instead, a thin needle made of jade must be used to poke an opening at one end. The Chinese heart poured into the test tube. Finally, according to the amount of elixir you want to prepare, calculate the mutual contents of the starlight leaf solution and the dreamglass stem solution, and finally use the instrument to carefully fuse them together. But the Jason in front of him mixed the two together without measuring at all, without considering the holy factor at all. At this moment, Gandalf looked at Jason, as if he was a student who had just graduated from elementary school. He saw a university mathematics professor solving a math problem. He immediately went up to watch with enthusiasm, but found that every step of the other person's solution was different from his own. But he didn't understand it at all, which made Gandalf so depressed that he almost vomited blood. Each item of material was quickly processed in Jason's hands, blended together, and reacted in the preparation bottle. Jason was completely integrated into the preparation. His expression was serious, and the sweat on his forehead was on his cheeks. A stream gathered together, and finally dripped from his chin, but he was unaware of it. Although Jason is currently preparing only a 4th level ultimate potion, because he is using it to break through the 3rd level barrier, Jason is extremely attentive when preparing it, striving to achieve perfection in every step. After discovering that he couldn't understand it at all, Gandalf didn't insist on understanding why Jason handled it like he did before. Instead, he purely appreciated Jason's preparation like Najin and the others. He didn't expect such a move. Come on, some of Jason's steps actually gave him some enlightenment and great inspiration. There was silence in the laboratory, except for the subtle reaction of the elixir and the sound of Jason's rapid processing of materials. No one dared to express their anger. Everyone could not help but hold their breath for fear of disturbing Jason's preparation. Call 111111. Jason's face was flushed, and the sweat on his forehead was as fine as beads. Time passed by, and with a subtle exhale, a bottle of bright red elixir that looked like blood was released. He quietly appeared on the experimental table and announced to everyone that the ultimate potion was completed. Jason adjusted his breathing slightly. He felt that the spiritual power in his body was running restlessly at this moment. He had previously devoted himself wholeheartedly to the preparation. It made his body have the urge to break through the 3rd level high-level spiritual master and advance to the 4th level low-level Yao spiritual master. This feeling of wanting to break through made Jason extremely excited and his blood boiled. It's better to choose the day than to hit the sun. Now that the 4th level extreme potion has been prepared, Jason is ready to take it and try it immediately. He has advanced to the next level. At this moment, he feels that his body is in surprisingly good condition. According to this spiritual god technique, after entering the 4th level heavenly spirit master, a cultivator will undergo a qualitative change, which makes Jason's heart full of expectations.